This is Keep Buggering On. And fair warning, everything you're about to hear is true. And none of it is going to make you feel any better about humanity. So let's step back. December 10th, 1941. Winston Churchill is in bed. He's working, not sleeping. The man basically ran the war from a mattress, but that's a separate episode. And he turns to his private secretary and he says, "We must KBO." Well, the secretary has no idea what he means at all. And Churchill has to explain, "Keep buggering on." That's it. That's the whole birth certificate of this entire podcast and the KBO Standard Supply line. Today, we're telling you where the name come from, and then we're going to spend entirely too long on a word that I've recently fallen in love with. And by the end, you're going to understand exactly why KBO Standard Supply exists, and also why I now say Huzzah out loud, unprompted, in regular conversation, like a person who might have just taken a pretty good hit to the head. Back to Winston, and we must KBO. 3 days before that moment in bed, Pearl Harbor happens. America is in the war now. And for Churchill, who had spent 2 solid years fighting basically alone, that changes everything. Not the fighting. The fighting's about to get a lot worse, actually. But the map. He writes to Roosevelt a couple of days later that he's enormously relieved at the turn world events have taken, which is Churchill for, "We're going to win this thing, eventually, and it's going to take forever and cost everything." Somewhere in that exact window, relief and exhaustion sitting right on top of each other, he says it. KBO, keep buggering on. Not a speech, not something written for history, just a private phrase to one man in bed on a random Wednesday. Here's my favorite detail, and it tells you everything about the man. He didn't say it to everyone the same way. Around men, it was the real version. Keep buggering on. Full vulgar glory. Around women, he'd clean it up to KPO. Keep plodding on. Same letter shape, completely different word, depending entirely on who was in the room. The most quoted man of the 20th century was out here doing audience-appropriate edits to his own catchphrases in real time. And somehow, nobody's ever made a big deal out of that. He said it constantly at the start of the day, the end of his phone calls, like a verbal tick that happened to be also a survival strategy. And it worked, not in a poetic, inspirational poster way. It worked because there was nothing dressed up about it. It wasn't "never surrender." It wasn't "we shall fight on the beaches." It was the rudest possible way of saying, "There's no trick here. There's no shortcut. You just keep doing the thing today, and then again tomorrow, whether you feel like it or not." And here's something that recently actually got me. This phrase is still alive 85 years later. A few months ago, King Charles, while being treated for his own cancer, said this exact phrase to other cancer patients. What's that Winston Churchill saying? Yeah, keep buggering on. A king talking to sick people, reaching for an 80-year-old statement because it's still the truest thing anyone's come up for. This is hard, and you do it anyway. That's not nostalgia. That's a phrase that's still doing its job. And we're talking about phrases that have survived. There's a word that almost didn't make it. Huzzah. Okay, I need to talk about this word because I have started saying it completely unprompted. And I think I finally understand why. Nobody actually knows where it came from. And I want to sit with that just for a second because we just spent a whole section confidently tracing exactly where Keep Buggering On started. A date, a bed, a secretary, a war. Huzzah has none of that. The Oxford English Dictionary, the most respected dictionary in the English language, the one that gets to be smug about everything, looked at this word and basically shrugged and wrote down, apparently a mere explanation. That's it. That's the entire entry. Centuries of linguists. And the best anyone can do is, yeah, it's a thing people yell. Best guess, it might have started as a sailor's cry. Something shouted while hoisting a sail or an anchor. Pure physical effort. No actual meaning attached. The verbal equivalent of grunting while you lift something heavy. From there, it apparently got picked up by soldiers, possibly during a war in the 1600s. And somewhere in there, it turned from noise you make while hauling rope into noise you make when something good happens. And then it almost died completely. After the American Civil War, Noah Webster's dictionary won the argument about how English gets spelled, and a bunch of old British spellings got steamrolled, Huzzah included. For about 150 years, this word basically only survived in reenactments and old novels, kept alive by the kind of people who show up to Revolutionary War weekends in full costume. And now it's back, showing up in memes, in video games, in random internet comments, and me specifically saying it loud at inappropriate moments. A word that was basically a museum piece a generation ago is now just a thing people say because it sounds delightful and nobody's totally sure exactly what you're saying. That uncertainty, that's the whole engine of the word. And it's the exact same engine of every product KBO Standard Supply will ever print. You say huzzah, and there's a half second where the other person doesn't know if you're being sincere, ironic, or if you're actually just slightly unwell. That's the gap where the smile happens. So all of that's the word on paper. But here's the word doing its actual job in real life, recorded by someone who was there. December 29th, 1812. The USS Constitution. Yes, the actual ship, Old Ironside, that we can still go visit today, is in a brutal close-range gun battle off the coast of Brazil against a British frigate, HMS Java. This isn't a quick fight. Cannons are tearing both ships apart for hours. And on board the Constitution is a boatswain's mate, a guy whose actual job is ropes and rigging, not poetry. And after they finally shoot away the British ship's masts and the battle turns decisively their way, he writes a ballad about it afterward. And here's the line, more or less, until their fore and mizzen mast was fairly shot away. And with redoubled courage, we gave them 3 huzzahs. 3, not 1. 3 on purpose, stacked up like a drum roll. And that's not poetic license. That's accurate to how the word was actually used at the time. Hip, hip, huzzah. Repeated, because apparently 1 wasn't enough to cover what they were feeling. Picture that moment for a second. Hours of cannon fire, smoke everywhere, men who just watch friends get hurt or worse. And the second the enemy's masks come down, the second it's actually finally over and they've won, the only thing anyone could think to do was yell the same slightly ridiculous word 3 times into the smoke. Not a speech, not a prayer necessarily, though there was probably some of that too. Just huzzah, 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 because some feelings don't need new words. They just need an old one loud enough. That's the proof. That's the word doing exactly what it's always done. Showing up at the one moment where dignity isn't the point anymore, and you just need to make a noise about the fact that you're still here. That was an epic huzzah. Let me tell you about a smaller version, a time my own family produced a huzzah moment. And I'm going to be upfront. This particular huzzah did not belong to me. It belonged to my daughter. I just did all the driving. So we used to go to Salem every single year. We loved it. It's a family tradition. One particular year, she wanted a very specific Halloween costume. Little Red Riding Hood, a particular version of Little Red Riding Hood that was not negotiable, not substitutable. So off we go. First stop, Salem, nothing. Let's go to Lowell, nothing. Worcester, still nothing. And at this point, we are moving deep into actual Massachusetts geography, into towns I would not otherwise have visited in this lifetime, all in pursuit of this very specific costume. We end up with this in New Hampshire, a different state. We crossed a state line for a Halloween costume. And somewhere in the middle of this odyssey, my windshield wiper flies clean off the car. And of course, the second it's gone, it starts raining, because that's how New England weather works during that part of the season. And it's not really weather. It's more like the sky personally decides to mess with you. So picture it, one functioning wiper. The rain has started. 2 days of driving behind us. And we finally walk into some store in New Hampshire. I honestly can't even remember what the name of that store was or the town. But there it is, the exact costume, the one she wanted the whole time. And in the one state we had not planned on visiting. That was her huzzah. She got a huzzah. I lost a windshield wiper. That's the trade I made that day. And honestly, I'd make it again, although I'd probably bring some backup wipers. Keep Buggering On survived 85 years because it refuses to be polished. It's rude. It's specific. It sounds like exactly what it is. A man in bed, exhausted, telling himself the unglamorous truth instead of something inspirational. Huzzah survived 450 years, nearly died, and came back because it does the same thing in miniature. It's a word that makes you pause for half a second before you're sure how to take it. That pause, that's it. That's the whole brand. That's why our products say something true and a little uncomfortable, and it works better than saying something nice. KBO Standard Supply isn't selling motivation. It's selling that half second where you go, wait, did you just land that? Churchill didn't pick a pretty phrase. He picked the truest one he had, vulgar and all. And it's still working for a king 8 decades later. Huzzah isn't a cute throwback. It's a word that survived getting erased because it never stopped being a little bit confusing in the best way. And that confusion, that half-second pause before the smile, that's the entire thing that we are building here in our products, in our stories, in every episode. KBO Standard Supply, the whole name, the whole reason this exists, just got explained in real time. Where the mindset. Huzzah, my friend. We checked it. It's real. You're not going to believe it. See you next time. Until then, my friend, keep buggering on and embrace every single huzzah moment life gives you.